Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile 2 video to talk about the 0.2.1 patch upcoming plans post that GHAZZY just recently posted. There's some really juicy stuff in here. I'm going to go through them real quick and not talk about every word in the actual post and give you guys my take on the whole situation, and let's just crack into it. So in this post, they're basically saying that this is going to be something they're aiming to release at the end of next week, but potentially with the little note that they might end up the week after. However, they are talking about endgame rewards, so setting up frequency of endgame rewards, decided how many maps players will have to do in order to get them, and after extensively play testing, they believe that they overshot the number substantially. So basically, they're making a lot of changes in this, when it comes to endgame rewards. Mostly, it's going to be about some very cool items to find, but you won't ever find them because they're incredibly rare. So what they're doing here is pretty cool, actually. They're adding more chase items and endgame items to chase for, and they're also making these chase items more commonly to drop. So let's go through the list. Essentially, the unique item section is that they're significantly improving both drop rates and incredibly rare unique items that we already have, as well as adding a bunch of exciting and chase unique items to your build, to take your builds to new heights. And they're going to be showcasing and teasing these in the week, well, in the days and weeks to come before this patch lands. So it's going to be quite exciting to see this. However, one thing that caught my eye quite a lot was the crafting socketable section. I'm going to read this out so you guys don't miss a thing here. One of the issues that we have with the socketable crafting system is at the moment is that the time you get to the end game, basically when you start mapping, there isn't really anything new or exciting to find to socket in your gear. And essentially, that means we're using iron runes and resistance runes and attribute runes for the most part. And then they're saying resists and attributes are great to help with solving problems in the early game, but we're using this in the end game as well. But in the end game, ideally, you should be swapping all of these out for more interesting and powerful mods, hence the new talismans and stuff that they've already introduced. In this patch, they're going to be adding 22 new runes, 14 new soul cores, and 7 new talismans, and these cover a full spectrum from being powerful to insane, but rare to find. You will certainly want to use them over normal bases of socketables. Now, this sounds awesome. This sounds great, but here's the problem. I made a tweet about this. The problem with the rune sockets, or the rune system, socket system, is that it's supposed to replace crafting, or bench crafting from PoE1. It's meant to help us navigate the whole idea of resistances and attributes. That's the purpose behind these. And the problem with this is that when you find, for example, a pair of gloves with a really high cold rest, but they're an upgrade for your build, maybe they have more life, or they have more energy shield, whatever you're looking for, or damage, for example, but the gloves that you're currently wearing have a high fire rest roll. Now, in order for you to change those, you're supposed to then change your runes, which is currently not really working because a lot of your rune slots is taken by iron runes, or they have resistance runes. Now you're supposed to change your runes to adapt that resistances to cover that aspect and then be able to equip this upgrade. But the problem is that this is not enough, and this ends up with a situation where you're more likely finding yourself being forced to re-equip or re-gear one or more other items to equip that one you dropped that was an upgrade. And it's very frustrating. And this problem has been brought up on interviews multiple times with GHAZZY, and they basically keep telling us, well, the socket system is supposed to adjust that and help you adjust the resistances and attributes as needed. But it's not enough. But now they're in this post, they're saying that, well, you're not supposed to use these. That's supposed to solve this problem. So I actually reached out to Jonathan asking him about GHAZZY's stance on adding some sort of omen to help us, for example, change a resistance to another resistance. So similar to Harvest Craft in PoE1, currently waiting for a response on that. Because with these changes, it feels like they have to do something like that. I think that once you're in the highest end game, especially in Trade League, you'll have such insane gear that this is not really an issue. But for the most people that are not sitting on, thousands of divines worth of gear, this is a huge problem. And how are they then going to be using these new and cool, powerful mods that you absolutely want to use in your gear? And we're supposed to not use these in your gear to fix our resistances. You still have to fix it. It just sounded really weird to me. Ritual has also suffered from us pitching the chase rewards too rare as well. So they're making rarer omens from Ritual more common. We'll see the same number of omens, but there's significantly higher probability of being rare. So that's going to be interesting. Corrupted essences, they're also increasing the commonality of getting corrupted essences when using Vol Orbs and Trapped essences by approximately 6 times. Rogue Exiles just didn't have enough unique items, so we're increasing the frequency that they will have that. So unique items are approximately going to drop 3 times as often. Twisted Domain, which is the breach content. What they've done here is quite insane, actually. The rest of it was pretty underwhelming outside of the actual boss. So what they're doing here is that they're substantially increasing the number of rare monsters that spawn during the domain. This will also help the timer to beat it. So it hopefully will have less fluctuation whether or not you beat it or not, depending on your build. And in addition, we've changed the balance of quantity and rarity the monsters in the domain will have. This will mean that large drops of items that occurs right before the boss fight should now be way more valuable than before. And it also guarantees some rare breach rings in the result of drops. So you should come away with at least a decent chance of powerful items. Now, the Expedition logbook, they've made a lot of changes. Mostly it's about resistances, and they're adding some more reward systems behind fences that you can break down. And they're also adding some more of the corrupted bosses and whatnot. I personally haven't spent too much time in doing Expedition because it's not a mechanic I personally enjoy very much. So maybe somebody in chat or someone in the YouTube comments down below, if you guys can give me a comment, see what you guys think of the logbook changes in this. I'll leave a link down in the description below to this post, as I'm not personally very excited about the Expedition changes myself, other than that I think that the boss, the Allroth fight, is a bit too rare to find. I haven't found them very often myself, and there was no mention of that in this list. However, endgame content and variety of improvements is another thing that they've talked about. For example, apparently there was a very high likelihood that you'll find hidden grotto maps, so they're making sure that they're changing this. Citadel changes is also spawning in a little bit different way. So now that when a citadel is generated on the Atlas, it also ensures that it generates 2 other types of citadels near it, so that you'll actually have a higher probability of fighting the Arbiter. I like this change very, very much. This helps especially for the non-trade league players. Both of these changes, the Atlas layout won't apply to areas in the Atlas that you already revealed. In order to get the improvements, you need to explore further away into the parts of the Atlas that haven't been generated yet. Additionally, you can expect some other endgame improvements, such as reducing the danger of the 2 ritual types that were just ruckus of purple explosions, and reducing danger and increasing telegraphing of the volatile plant modifiers. Thank God. Combined, these were responsible for over half of the player deaths in the game. No shit. We're also lowering some of the more dangerous map modifiers like elemental penetration to be more in line with others. Some improvements on rewards, visibility of omens in the Viridian Wildwood map, radius in the class pan and breaches, reduced pack size of the bats that shotgun you with projectiles in the twisted domain, and rework the curse map mods to have counterplay. There's just some of the more isolated improvements that are coming, so there will be more. Trial of Sekimas have had some adjustments as well. The affliction that caused you to have no energy shield instead gives you 50% energy shield. This is so that CI builds makes it not a completely bricked run, because if you got that one and you were CI, you were completely done for. On top of this, they discovered a mistake with a chance of getting a certain affliction and boon, where 1 affliction and 2 minor boons and 1 major boon, and 1 pack that had been 100 times more common than the others. And this should be more cost more players to constantly be getting them as a first randomly generated outcome, as these boons were in particular the weaker and more boring ones. It would often have made the runs less rewarding and interesting. Then there's been a lot of quality of life and user experience changes, which is actually quite good, though. We did some notably quality of life improvements in the 0.0h patch, but there are more coming. We have huge improvements on searching the passive tree when using KVM. Now, when you search for a passive and typing in the text field, you can press enter automatically and go to that passive, and you can keep clicking that, and it will highlight it and everything. It's actually really cool with the way they've done this. It's basically like doing a Control F search on your browser. They're basically adding that into the Atlas, which I think is really nice. Huge request is that we've inverted the display of tier X. So basically in PoE 1, tier 1 modifiers are the best modifier. Tier 2 is the second best, tier 3 third best, etc, etc. And this is not the case in PoE 2. This has been brought up on the Tavern Talk with me and Darth, for example, on our Tavern Talk with them. And they are now going to be swapping back this to work the same way as Path of Exile 1. Thank God for this change. On the Atlas, when you hover over a map, it will actually separate the categories of modifiers displayed, so you can more easily see where those modifiers are coming from. Especially when you can now determine if they're for corrupted or cleansed influence in one category, and if they're from towers in another category. This will help make it clearer when looking for specific modifiers like the +1 in level in corrupted influenced areas. There's also performance improvements coming. We're optimizing the physics on monsters and NPCs across the game. This is making them significantly cheaper and will cause less CPU bottlenecks on performance. This issue isn't prevalent everywhere, but is common in areas with lots of humans, and they're just making some optimizations to this, among other things. And also, they've added some improvements to the shop and cosmetic panels, but I don't really care too much about that. However, the conclusion to this is that summarizes the 0.2.1 patch that we're hoping to deploy at the end of the week, but we are keeping flexible as it might fall into the week afterwards. We will keep you updated with further changes and post some specifics, uniques, and socketable between now and then. Thank you very much, community team Grinding Gear Games. I think this all looks really good. I mean, they started off this entire patch with a 0.2 patch being a complete disaster with all the nerfs, and then they have incrementally done a lot of changes to the game to make it better and improve it as we move forward. But you know, there's some questionable things, but we have to see them taking every step along the way to get to the final picture. But no, I think that the big thing that I take away from this is the socketable crafting, socketable sections, where I feel like they've said one thing and now they're saying another. It feels like the solution to this, or the purpose of the sockets, was to replace the benchcraft, and now they're telling us that we're not supposed to use them to fix the issue that the benchcraft was solving for us at all. So I just want to know what their solution is to fixing the problem that they're now telling us that we're not going to use it for. This feels really awkward. So I'll get you guys updated as soon as I hear back from Jonathan. And that's about it. That's my TLDR rundown of the current patch for the upcoming planned patch 0.2.1. Hope you guys enjoyed this little quick rant. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment down below in the comment section what you guys think of the patch. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking.